Good Monday morning, Mark Conlock, Director of Horticulture at Green Bay Botanical Garden. Here with some tips for you, some things you can do in your yard, now that it's warming up, but still gonna be cold at night. So remember a couple times ago when we raked our lawn, we got the leaves and debris and sticks out of there? Well, something you can start to think about now is overseeding some of those bare spots in your lawn. So it's gonna be a little cold at night still, but it's something to get ready for and possibly start doing. Actually, we did a little bit here at Green Bay Botanical Garden. So one of the first things is you got to buy some seed. So other cool thing, this particular seed bag here from Heritage, this is something, you probably won't buy this bruiser turf type tall fescue. It's something we bought for our grand garden project. It's a newer seed and it's something that has a deep root system, doesn't require as much water to try to be more sustainable here at Green Bay Botanical Garden, not water that so much in that big turf. But what I wanted to point out was that when you buy your seed bag, hey, check out one like this that tells you how to do everything. Then you don't have to, look it up online or try to find this video. So that's kind of cool on this bag. They tell you the whole process. But what I wanted to tell you is when you're buying your seed, if you have, a really sunny area, you usually want to look for a seed that has about 60% Kentucky bluegrass, 30% fescues, and 10% perennial ryegrass. If you have a part shady area, 60% fescue, 30% Kentucky bluegrass, 10% perennial rye. Now, the label on the bag is going to tell you sun or shade, but just kind of look at that to check it out, because sometimes, it's not exactly that, but it's also sometimes hard to find that exact mix, so I'm just saying that's like a guideline. And if you have a really shady area, forget about it. You're not going to grow grass. Move on to a moss garden. All right, so once you get your grass seed, what you want to do is when you have these little spots in your lawn here, you want to kind of get the seed bed prepared. So I like to take this hard garden rake and just kind of scratch it up a little bit. I mean, if you want to get deeper, because the grass has to grow through this compacted soil, you can take a garden fork and kind of, mess it up a little bit here, kind of aerate the soil a little bit. And then I like to use the garden rake, to get it like this. Now these are pretty clumpy, so I would actually kind of take my hands in here then and break it up too, and go through there. And you're going to want to pick out rocks and big clods and other stuff like that, and kind of get it all nice and smooth, kind of reestablish your grade with the rake here. I call this bleeding it into the existing lawn. Then, if you have little patches, you can just take the seed out of the bag and kind of chicken feed it out there. I like to use this little spreader guy here that we have at the garden because we do big areas. So you can see, you don't need very much of it on here. And on our bag, it kind of told us how to make it look actually too. So, we don't want too little, we don't want it crazy, we want this bit here. And when you're over, seeding your lawn, you use a bit less than when you're starting a new lawn from scratch. So then the next step is I got to go over here and grab my leaf rake, and I like to kind of just get a better contact of the seed with the soil, and kind of push it down there and kind of cover it up a little bit, just about halfway. Or you can even kind of pat it in with your hand if it's a small spot like that. Next step, give it a little water. The thing about the grass seed is, you need to water it just a little bit, a lot in the beginning. And then as it starts to grow, you can water it a little less frequently, but deeper, because you want to establish a nice, deep root system that'll help it be more drought tolerant. And then, if you have it, the last step is to put a little bit of straw, just to help retain the moisture there so you're not watering this constantly. So I would put a little bit more if I had some, but I just scavenged this off of an existing garden here. So that's kind of what it should look like, maybe a little thicker with the straw like over here on this one that I did previously. And then now all you have to do is, just check it a couple times a day maybe, give it a little drink of water, and let it sprout up and grow. And then let it grow to about, 3-4 inches, and you want to cut off about 1/3 of your grass blade every time you mow. So the first time it's pretty, I'd say kind of weak and everything, so cut it a little higher maybe to just let it get established too. If it has more grass blade, it's going to have more energy. But also grass, it's really just growing here, so when you cut it, you're actually stimulating growth of the apical meristem below there. So anyway, you know, just mow about 1/3 of the grass blade and let it get established and kind of go into the rest of your lawn. So that's something you can start to think about doing in your own yard now. So that is patching the grass. Now I got another kind of fun project over here. All right, in this age of safe social distancing, I was thinking, hey, everybody's getting out, walking, but our sidewalks have been overtaken sometimes. So a couple ideas here. One, this side here is a way to get grass off of your sidewalk. So I like to use this little tool here. It's a linoleum knife. I always call it a tile knife, but I actually looked it up this morning. It's called a linoleum knife. But I really love this thing, and I always feel like really tough when I'm holding on to this. I feel like I could be, I don't know what exactly, but it just makes me feel a little crazy. So all you have to do is find the edge of your turf and the curb and the sidewalk and just cut through it here. So this part I did like with a different tool, but here you can see I just like cut here, then I like to use this side to chop it up, and I can just pull this guy right out here. So it makes a nice edge, reestablishes this. And I'm going to go over this way here, Rachel, and show I'm going to spin around here because I want to show you the full effect of this blade. So you can see how it works pretty fast, and it's, you know, pretty easy to do actually. And then you'll get some of your sidewalk back. You'll have this nice clean edge. Your neighborhood will look all fancy, and it'll be great. If you don't want to buy one of these or you don't have one, you can do the same thing over here with a flat shovel. So you just have a shovel like this, and you kind of just step it along the edge. You know, it's a little bit more, you know, to kind of go back and forth, you can see, compared to the tile knife. But if you don't want to crouch down on the ground, it works out good. And then it just tears it out the same way. So those are two tools you can use for getting the grass off the edge. Other thing I want to mention with this as we go to our next project of a garden, a vegetable garden, is if you have grass and you want to remove it to make a new garden, these guys come in handy because you can lay out your bed, you know, with a hose if it's curvy, or, you know, just like pulling a string line or putting flour on the ground. You can cut with the linoleum knife around the edge, and then you can use this flat shovel to tear the turf grass out. So that's what we use a lot here for small projects. Other side of your sidewalk might be a planting bed. So one thing to do is take this, you know, flat shovel or any kind of scoop and just kind of reestablish the edge of your sidewalk with that too. You'll probably want to like take the mulch and, you know, bleed it down a little bit and kind of slightly recover it. And depending on the rainfall, you know, it might wash back, but it just kind of cleans everything up for the start of the season. A nice thing about that side with the grass is you'll have less grass to mow. A bad thing about it is you'll have more sidewalk to shovel. So it's kind of like, you know, cup half empty, cup half full. I don't know, depends what you like better. All right, so that's some things you can do. Establishing turf grass, getting rid of some grass that's on the sidewalk, getting your bed edges ready, kind of cleaning them up for springtime.
Mark, is there any worry when you're edging a sidewalk area or your driveway from grass? Is there a worry of doing it too much? Or is it going to grow back without any problem, you know, for someone who's never done that before?
Oh, you mean like, you shouldn't have to worry about, like, you know, if you take it off of here, because really your grass wouldn't grow typically, you know, on concrete or asphalt. Sometimes, you know, like if you cut it up and you rip out too far, you know, like here, for example, it's a little bit more, but the grass is going to grow back in here because the grass, you know, spread. That's how it spreads, and that's how it got there in the first place. So I wouldn't worry about, like, unless you accidentally go like crazy, but I think you'll be all right. It should grow back is the short answer.
Okay.
All right, well, now I want to kind of squeak over here. So that's our grass projects. But another thing, you know, people have been really getting into gardening or really interested in gardening because of everything going on, and they want to grow their own vegetables. And we talked a little bit, remember? Maybe you saw one of the videos where we started a little bit of arugula in a little pot here, and you can see it's germinated. Remember how I sprinkled it kind of crazy? Well, it grew kind of crazy too, actually, but that's all right. You know, we'll just like weed those out and eat them as they get a little bit bigger and have them established, you know, every 3-4 inches in that pot. So that's the container garden idea, but if you have, maybe some lawn you want to take out, or maybe you have a garden bed or always had a bed but never really grew too much stuff, you can start to prepare that now. It's a little early for putting out tomatoes, peppers, a lot of the crops, but what you can start to do is think about what you want to grow, think about what you actually like to eat and use so that you buy that kind of crops. But again, it's going to be pretty cold this week, so I wouldn't be plopping too much of that in the ground. You'd have to put it in your house. So instead, take a look in your existing garden, and when we look through here, we find some jobs to do. I mean, I don't have my soil knife on me, but I have this weed here that I'd want to pull out of here. This little chickweed guy, and the dandelion, I'd want to get all the roots. But look what we found. We have a strawberry plant that already exists here. You probably heard of permaculture. Well, strawberries, there's like some onions over there on the other side next to the ornamental ones. On the other side of this little garden, there's some rhubarb that you might have in your yard coming up. And back behind the shed here, which we'll see at the end, we have some thyme and some oregano and herbs that are perennials. So, a lot of people are cooking herbs. If you start to buy those now, those guys are going to come back, a lot of them every year, so you'll have that all the time. So the first step is to see what you have and then to weed out around it. The other thing when you start looking is, we already have lettuce that's seeded out last year, so we have little lettuce seedlings already, like with the jump start. And remember, the lettuce and the radishes are guys that are cool season crops that can grow through this weather, so we don't even need to worry about that. And we have these. We can leave them, or we could even try to transplant some of these little babies and make a new row of lettuce. So that's kind of cool. We have a plant that we didn't even have to pay for. It's free.
So if someone planted some not less necessarily lettuce or radishes, but planted something that doesn't really take to the cold really well, what should they do this week?
Well, if it's pretty small, you might want to consider, just popping it out of the ground if it's just a few plants and bringing them inside at night especially. Or, you can try to cover them up with a sheet or burlap or, something like that, just to keep it a little bit warmer, different row cover cloths, things like that will give you a few degrees usually, so that's one idea to do. Okay. But yeah, if they're pretty small, you might want to bring them in because it's supposed to be below freezing, I think, a couple nights this week. Mm-hmm. So remember, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants are all this family called Solanaceae. So they're warm season crops. So they like the soil to be warmer than it is right now, and they're really something that you want to wait. Typically in our area, we also say Memorial Day is our time. You usually people want to get a jump on it, but that's kind of when it happens to be a lot of the times, unfortunately, for our short growing season here in Wisconsin. But we'll make up for it, when it gets warm throughout the summer. Mm-hmm. So anyway, one other thing you could do once you get the weeds out is you could consider kind of just turning your soil, or, there's a soil test at the UW Extension website that you might want to get done to see if you need fertilizer. But for veggies and things, you oftentimes need to add a little bit, but we like to do kind of not add a ton of fertilizer here at the garden, but what we could do is add some compost to our soil. So the soil here, you can see, is already really, really good. So I already threw a little bit of compost on there actually, but on the other side of this garden here, same thing. I was gonna just dig it up, kind of turn it over and break it up a little bit. That way the roots of all my veggies, can go down through there. And then once I do that, I would add a couple inches of compost on here, spread it out. I might add a little more. This stuff is Purple Cow compost, which is from the Madison area, and it's really good stuff. We buy it in these super sacks, they call it, but you can get it from some of the places around here in town actually. And then I would just kind of break this compost in here. And then I would get my rake from the other side, which I forgot to bring over. I knew there was something I forgot, and kind of rake this all out. And then I would have it my whole planting area prepared for my summer garden ahead of time. So that's something that we can do now that it's cold, to get ready for when it's warm. Here's a little mustard weed that I'd pull out, in the grass and the other things. But I just wanted to come over here to give you one last idea. First I was going to show you the thyme. There's never enough time to get all these gardening jobs done, so just do what you can, make it fun, keep it fun. That's a big thing if you're starting to get into gardening, is don't bite off more than you can chew, and make sure that you're having fun and enjoying being outside, being with your family, being out there in the soil and seeing these plants. Don't go crazy and overwhelm yourself. But another garden thing you could do is make a little craft project like this tour here. So you just need some sticks. You can either screw them together or lash them together at the top here. And this is a great little project that you can use in your vegetable garden to grow beans or peas or other vining crops, cucumbers, even like squash and things like that. So it's kind of a fun project if you're cleaning up and cutting stuff and pruning stuff like we talked about last week, and you have a big dead branch or something. If it's strong enough, you could use it to make a project like this. So you're kind of like recycling, not just throwing that stuff away. So those are just a few projects I have here. As the sun starts to come out and it starts to get warmer, those are some things you can do to get your yard ready, your garden ready. So for more tips, follow us on Facebook or check out our website, gbbg.org, and I hope you have a great week.